Do you think that, as far as your presence in Uganda goes, it could potentially have been compromised because of the subject of your film? And if so, do you feel like you got some sort of protection by being with this community of activists?
Oh wait, sorry, you meant our security or the community's security?
Your security.
Our security.
Mm-hmm.
Not really. I mean, actually we were, or I at least was kind of surprised at how easy it was to film in Uganda and really not get much hassle at all. I mean, we had to get media accreditation, but that was kind of a formality just in case anyone ever asked for our papers, and no one, I guess when we had to interview politicians, they would ask for them, but that really wasn't a major factor. And other than that, it was pretty easy to access, beyond having to be willing to just kind of make repeated phone calls and like go and try and meet someone and wait a few hours for them to be available. But in terms of actually getting the meeting in the first place, that wasn't that difficult. And I mean, they're pretty used to dealing with media and with foreign media in Uganda. And they also have a pretty strong sense of freedom of the press. So it was interesting that we really kind of never had any hassle, just even standing in the street with a camera. It didn't really seem to draw that much attention. And then in terms of the community, LGBT issues and, I mean, the anti-homosexuality bill was something that was receiving a lot of international attention, but it wasn't something that the people pushing for it were ashamed of. It was something they were very proud of, and they were very proud of the fact that they were pushing for it despite the fact that former colonial influences didn't want them to do it. So what's interesting is that this issue is the issue of LGBT rights or non-rights in Uganda is actually more an issue that people want to debate rather than kind of really get very aggressive over. So for the most part in terms of our experience there as people from the US and the UK. So when we'd sit down to an interview with a member of parliament like David Bahati, who was the author of this bill, he was just happy to have the debate and tell us that he thought we were wrong. So there wasn't, in that sense, there wasn't a big sense of our danger being there wasn't that much of a sense of our security being threatened. But that said, after David died, and basically we went straight back to Uganda within like a day or two of that news, of hearing that he'd been killed. Definitely everything had kind of been turned upside down by that. And as I said earlier, the community really hadn't expected anything like that to happen. It was such a violent and brutal act. So there was just a general sense of, within the community, of like not knowing what could happen next, and not knowing what David's murder meant. And given that we were again staying with Naome, that was probably the first moment when we really started to wonder how safe we were. But ultimately, it turned out that things still went on as they did before to a certain extent.